Welcome to the Apostolic Voice with Doctors Mark and Jill Kaufman.
Welcome to the Apostolic Voice. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Kaufman. We are here in beautiful Kingdom Broadcasting Network studios in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and we want to welcome our live audience. Thank you for joining us. We have a tremendous program for you today. I could not be more excited to have our guest with us today, all the way from Tampa, Florida, is the one and only Archbishop Lawrence Langston. Will you please welcome him?
Thank you. Thank you.
This is an amazing man. To know him is to touch the very heart and nature of God.
Hallelujah.
This is the caliber man that is sitting here with me today, and his journey has been absolutely incredible. I mean, talk about story time. We could spend 10 episodes just talking about the stories and what you've been through, what you've accomplished. And he is the founder and the president of Tabernacle Bible College and University, and he's also pastored a church, and the list goes on. His resume is 10 times longer than mine. And what a blessing he has been to me, my family, and our local church. We are actually in the process of purchasing the university off him, changing the name to Kingdom International University.
Yes.
He's staying on board. He's not going anywhere. We need him, first of all, just as my friend, my spiritual father, my mentor, but also because of the years of experience and expertise. 37 years, is that right, sir?
38 for the college. Yeah.
38 years for the college. Come on, everybody. Isn't that amazing? And he has graduated thousands of students around the world, close to 30 campuses right now around the world, and also here in the States, and still going strong at 78 years old.
Yeah.
Amen. When I grow up, I'm going to be like you, sir. Going strong. So listen, I don't want to do all the talking. We want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get started. He's going to be with us for a few weeks, for a few episodes here. So I want to start with where you started. How did you get here today?
Well, I'm thinking back, which way to start. Growing up, I won't mention the denomination, but I was sent to church every week. Got to go every Sunday. My mother saw to it. And we were Baptists. It was good Baptists. And I had someone ask me a while back, when did you actually really get saved? I was baptized several times. Every few weeks, when something would happen in my life. A friend of mine has said this. I've heard the cliche, excuse me, for years, that I was baptized so many times I knew every frog by his name in the lake. But anyway, I played sports all the way through high school, but my mother took me aside one day, and I was getting, and back then we were a little bit different. You know, we grew up much faster than young people today, matured much faster. But anyway, I was involved in some things, and my mother kept saying, son, you got to get out of this. And I asked her one day why, and she said, because you're called to preach. And I said, no. Anyway, she told me a story. She said that before I was born, she was 6 months pregnant with me. And this was before abortion, 58 years ago. The doctor said, if I don't take the child, you and the child both will die. And she said, I choose not to do that. She went home and prayed the prayer of Hannah, Samuel's mother. And she said, Lord, if you give me this son, I give him to you all the days of his life.
Yeah.
And I used to kid with her about this. The problems I've gone through with ministry because of you. But anyway, even when I was a child, I can remember I was telling an apostle, when I was a child, some of the neighborhood kids, we would join together and play, and I would watch preachers on television. They had just invented television. Not quite, but anyway. And I had a little soapbox and a pup tent, and I would preach or act like I was. But something just kept growing in me and growing in me. And after high school, the Army drafted me and go to Vietnam, and I joined the Marine Corps. And 2 weeks after boot camp, I was saying, my God, what have I done? It was rough. Vietnam was a place I wouldn't want to be. But anyway, 2 tours. But the Lord preserved me. And I look back at that, and I was telling one of our brothers here yesterday, I never experienced PTS like so many. It was the grace of God.
Yeah.
And I knew that the hand of God was on my life, and it was not because I was there that I was going to turn to Him. But as soon as I got out, I knew I was called to ministry. And 6 months after I really committed myself to the Lord, I was in ministry. I was preaching just what little bit I know. I had one message, and churches would invite me in and say, "We give you 15 minutes." Well, I was done in 5. I had one little message. But over the years, God continued to move me into ministry. I worked with a great number of people. I was telling Pastor Mark, I used to lead worship for R.W. Shambach for a number of years. And I used to sing like this brother here till I woke up. But it's just so many experiences. And I was a tent preacher. I don't know whether you ever preached in tents or not. But
No, I've never been in
had
tents.
several, very large. And I won't mention all the ministers' names, but I came across many that mentored me. Not for a long period of time, but I was getting bits and pieces here and there. But I knew I was called to do greater works. And I love to travel. I've been in 70 nations, but it was always my desire to be a missionary. But I tried that out for about 2 weeks one time. I remember when the plane was flying away, I'm thinking I'm stuck here for 6 more months, which I was. But that's not what God wanted. I was going to be a missionary pilot, which I've been a pilot for about 56 years now. And anyway, with a mission field, we begin to establish churches, schools, clinics. Our first one was in Mexico, then in Belize, then Honduras, Costa Rica, Guatemala, just the list goes on, Colombia, South America. But I was still not quite satisfied with what was happening. The results was great.
That was all part of the preparation for where God was taking you.
The preparation,
Yeah.
exactly. And I met a group, trying to remember what year it was, but the Lord spoke to me in a dream that I'm going to move you in a position of a bishop. Well, I thought reverend was good. And then I was ordained as an apostle, and then you go from an apostle to a prophet, but the Lord kept saying, I want you in a position of a bishop. I understood what a bishop was, but I'm thinking, what's the reasoning? Why? You know, I'm already recognized in many circles of who I am, but the bishopry had something else to it. And I came across an organization in London, Transatlantic and Pacific Atlantic Churches, and they consecrated me as a bishop. This has been 38 years ago, I think, something like now, 39 years ago. And I served with them. They had maybe 100 churches worldwide. Now there's between 1,500 and 2,000 churches and ministries. Take a sidebar here. I am the Secretary of Ecclesiastical Affairs for all of those ministries. But then the Lord kept saying, I'm going to take you higher. Now, I know many ministries that, and I know bishops, and you know some, that they're self-made. You know, they feel God's called me, so ordain myself. Well, that didn't work. But I've met a number of these people and never condemn them, never criticize them. But we've always reached out to try to bring them into our organization to mentor them, to help them understand what a bishop ministry is. Hope I'm not going on too long.
You're doing good. Keep going, sir.
Okay. But then they ordained me or consecrated me as an archbishop. The archbishop elect, who was in line with a very dear friend of mine, he was a man from Ghana, West Africa, part of the Ashanti nation, which I'll talk about in a moment, and a precious man. He was like a father to me. And 3 weeks before we were going to consecrate him, he passed away. The Lord took him. And then they said, well, we want you to step up. And I said, I'm not sure I want to do this. But anyway, they did, and then it just began to explode. Doors began to open. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Evangelical Episcopal Church. Now, I was originally ordained with God, and then, but then I came across this group. There's a point to all this story. I came across this group called the Evangelical Episcopal Church. They broke away from the mainline Episcopal when the Episcopal Church began to take in and do same-sex marriages, etc. It's a very large organization. Well, they made me a bishop of that organization. But I knew that I was not called to leave what I was doing. I'm still associated with them. But I continued to do mission work. We've established churches, clinics, like I said, in all of those. But I started the Bible college, my wife and I, about almost 39 years ago. I started it to be in our local church. At that time, our church, we were pastoring small churches, about 100, 125 people. And I always wanted to train people, equip them, not just like an evangelist, blow in, blow up, and blow out. Train people, impart everything God's put in me. Yes, and that's not a thought that you have everything, but everything I had in me, I want to put in people. So we started the Bible college. We were in Lebanon, Virginia, just a very small church. And we hadn't started the college yet. We were talking about it. I'd already talked to the state of Florida to incorporate the incorporation and got started to be a 501c3 with the IRS. And anyway, I stood up at the close of this service, powerful prophetic conference, miracles, oh. And I said, we have a Bible college, and if you'd like to enroll, and my wife's got her head down, I said, if you'd like to enroll, meet me after the service. There were 22 people that came up. And she said, husband, you don't have a Bible college. I said, but I do. It's inside of me.
Yeah, come on.
She said, but it's not out yet. These people came up and wrote checks. They said, how much is the enrollment fee? And I'm thinking, $250. That sounds like a good. And now somebody told me one time, you were lying. No, I wasn't. I was pregnant with this thing.
It was in you. Yes, sir.
Amen. And so anyway, I went back home and I spent the next 6 months, almost day and night, writing the courses. I wrote everything, most everything myself, and then some others came in. But to finally get to the point, then we started growing. And so I just wanted it for our local church. A friend of mine came in from Philadelphia and he said, I really like what you're doing. Could I have a church or a school in my church? I said, well, I guess so. And then it went from another one to another one and to another one and to another one. At one time, we had a total of 38 churches, 38 extension campuses in the States. Out of the country, we had, I think, right back then, about 25 or 30. But I knew it was continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow. And pastor after pastor would come to me. Now, we had this happen, and we don't want this to ever happen again with you, that somebody will do this to you. After a while, I probably shouldn't say this. Well, I'm already out here. But pastors would stay with us for about 5 years and take their students from associate degree to PhD and get all the material, and then they start their own school. And I would be disappointed. The Lord said, why? And I said, because they're stealing my material. He said, no, they're not. He said, I'm the one that gave it. You wanted to impart to people. You ever had the Lord correct you?
Oh, yes, many times.
It's not fun. But anyway, bottom line, taking you to it, we're in 51 nations and soon to be in 52. I've traveled to 70 nations of the world, as I said, and by the grace of God, 58 years of full-time ministry. And the schools that we've started, many, there are men and women that have come out and gone into the marketplace. Marketplace ministry is just as important as pulpit ministry. Yes, sir. And but some of these young men and women, I've known them for years, and you'll meet some of these people. There are hundreds and hundreds. But the main thing that the Lord kept reminding me of, you wanted to impart into people, and I'm not done with you. I'll tell you some stories.
Let me just take a break. We're going to take a commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
We hope you are enjoying this episode of The Apostolic Voice. Let me introduce you to Dr. Mark's book, The Ethos Initiative. On page 16, it says, every city has a redemptive purpose and a calling upon it. A clarion call is going out to the church from the Lord to take our place as catalytic city reformers. The destiny of our cities is in our hands. Our help in this season will not come from the White House or the courthouse, but only from the Lord's house. Now back to the Apostolic Voice.
And we are back. Thank you for staying with us, Archbishop. This is an incredible journey. Continue from where you were. We want to hear more.
Okay. It was in my heart always, as a child, to learn to fly. And I started a church in upstate New York. I can't believe I look back at this 50 years ago. And I just received an invitation to come back to their anniversary. But anyway, I was standing in the backyard one day, and right on the St. Lawrence River, you look over and there's Canada. And I'm looking up and there's a plane flying over, and I said, Lord, I'd love to fly, learn to fly. He said, you need to. Now, when God speaks, it's not always audible. It's, the impression in my spirit. Well, it didn't take me but a few minutes to realize, okay, this is God. So I started taking flying lessons. And God does adjustments in our lives. What is Psalm 137, David said, the Lord will perfect that which concerns me, what pertains to me. And the correct translation is the Lord will adjust things that pertaining to me. So adjustments had to be made. So I learned to fly quickly in the story. I learned to fly a 2-seat airplane. Man, I had arrived. And then I learned to fly a 4-place airplane, 4 seats. And then I started doing missionary work, and I would lease an airplane and fly a very small airplane from Key West to Honduras. Had to stop in Mexico for fuel. But the Lord said, this is not large enough. So we bought a 6-passenger airplane. And there's a story about that one. Anyway, flying supplies and food, anything you could put in this airplane, it would fly. And I was going deep into the jungles of Honduras, and I would say sometimes a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time. And it had 6 seats, so I would take 5 people with me and everything we could carry. And you're not old enough for this, but years and years ago, before the jungle things, we did what was called brush arbor meetings. You ever heard of those?
Never heard of those.
Well, you cut branches from a tree and you make like a lean-to. This was back in Kentucky and Tennessee, and you would have a church service in that. Well, we did the same thing with palm trees and palm fronds, etc. And the first church we built, we stayed there about 2 weeks. But I remember on a Monday morning, there was a huge open field we had. I'll get back to the airplane in a moment. But I had never seen people so hungry for God. It was a wide open field just on the edge of the jungle, right on the river. And Monday morning, I'm sleeping on the ground in a tent. And I woke up and I heard all these voices and people are gathering. And I don't exaggerate or try not to, or as some speak evangelistically.
Yeah.
But there was probably 200 people there that had walked in from the jungle areas. They heard we were going to be there. And I'm thinking, Lord, I wasn't planning a church service today. What we do? What do we do? And I just started sharing the word, and we had to have a translator. Obviously, I don't speak Spanish. And I said, if anybody wants to be healed, come forward and God will heal you. It was like a mad rush. And I thought to myself, now, Lord, you better show up on this one. Because a friend of mine that was another missionary was with me, and he used to do things like this, and I would really want to run off the stage. He said, if God don't heal you, we'll leave this area. Well, he said that to these Spanish people. If God doesn't heal you today, we'll leave here. And I'm saying, Bobby, no. First person that came up to be healed was an 18-year-old kid, a deaf mute. I'm sorry. He had never spoken a word and never heard a sound in his entire life. I'm thinking what my friend Bobby has just said, and I'm saying, God, you better do this one. Instantly, God opened his ears. I rebuked the deaf spirit, deaf and dumb spirit came out. He shook a little bit and didn't know what happened to him. And people are clapping their hands, and he's screaming, holding his hands over his ears, saying, shoo, shoo. That's the sound he heard. Now, he didn't start talking right away. A person who's 18 years old, never heard a sound in their life, they're not going to start unless it's just one of those miracles. That didn't happen. He learned to speak. He learned to talk. But that just broke into miracles all through that crowd. And I was so thankful of what God did. But that led to something else. I went back there a few months later. He was speaking perfect English, and now he wanted to be ordained to be in the ministry.
Wow.
And I look back, hallelujah. It's been a few years since I've been there, but he's still in the ministry.
Still in the ministry. Look at God. Wow.
Julio Rodriguez. But anyway, back to the airplane situation. I've been in 2 airplane crashes, I've mentioned. And I bought the 6-passenger aircraft, and they had just redone everything inside, the interior, new engine, everything was perfect. And when we got into Honduras, we were there, this was another trip. Some of the pastors are coming in from over the mountain. It would take them almost a day and a half, 2 days to walk over the mountain to get to where we were on the river. And when the conference is over, we finished the church where there was maybe 30 pastors there. And so rather than send them home walking over the mountain, I had an Air Force pilot with me. He was a cargo pilot. And I said, Bob, just take my plane and fly 6 of them back over and come back. He put 10 people in a 6-passenger airplane. Well, anyway, long story, he overshot now there's no runways there, it's cow pastures. When you land, you have to buzz and chase the cows off the runway. He overshot the runway, messed up the airplane, bent the leading edge of the wings, just did a lot of damage, so I won't go through all of that. But we worked on it for 24 hours because the only way out of there was by air or by river, which would take almost 3 days to get back to where we needed to be, or walk through the jungle. And snakes and I do not get along. I know Jesus said you'll take up service. No. But anyway, we worked on the airplane, and I had 5 people on board with me, all Spirit-filled people. And I mean, this thing is badly damaged. The emergency transmitter is going off. I can see it blinking. And I knew that eventually that air traffic control would catch it. But anyway, we took off, and I'm going down the runway, and it's bouncing. It's a grass strip. There's holes, and I'm praying. Everybody in the back. One guy that never prayed in tongues started praying in tongues, and it's just bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and you get to the point of no return. It's fly or die.
Yeah.
And so we're probably, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, maybe 50 yards from 50-foot trees. The other side's a river. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, either here we come or here we go. And you believe in angels.
Yes, sir.
Suddenly, this airplane just went up. Now, I've got the control stick pulled all the way back into my chest, as high as it'll go. And we went over the trees, and everybody still prayed in tongues. And we dropped down, and we thought, now we're going in the river. But over water, I'm getting too technical, but over water, it gives you lift. So the airplane began to fly when we got back. But going from Mexico, after we refueled, they were not going to let me fly because the emergency transmitter is going off, and so the airplane is not ready to fly. I flew anyway. So you get about halfway between, you have to fly to Key West, halfway from Cancun, Mexico to Key West, and you can see Cuba over here. We were about 12,000 feet. And if you don't turn at the right point, no road signs, you'll fly north and wind up in maybe Sarasota, someplace on the Panhandle, or run out of fuel. But if you turn too soon, you're a guest of Castro. So I'm praying. Everybody's asleep and I'm praying. My GPS and digital gyros are just spinning. The other one's just flashing. So the only direction I had was the compass.
Okay.
But you can't tell with the compass like a cross street. I guess that's the only way to describe it. Like you're coming to a crossroad, but you can't tell that you're at the crossroad without both of these directional gyros. Well, I'm praying in the Spirit, and I'm looking at the panel, and it's still spinning. There's a moral to this story. And I said, Lord, where do we turn? Instantly, now this is going to sound strange, I looked on the left wing, and there's an angel sitting there just as clear as you see us. And I'm rubbing my eyes, I'm thinking, we've been in the air too long. I looked again, he's still sitting there. And this angel, my God, this angel just looked over me, and I can't describe the feeling. I can't describe the look. And instantly, GPS worked. Instantly, the two directional gyros, one locked in on Cuba and one locked in on Key West, and we made it. But the miracle, amazing. We got back home, and I flew back into Tampa, and I had to contact the FAA, Federal Aviation, because of the accident, and the insurance adjuster to come out because the plane was badly damaged. And he said, "Sir, there's two things here. Either you're crazy or you got a lot of faith." I didn't dare tell him about the angel. I said, "Why?" He said, "This airplane cannot fly." I said, "It did. We flew 1,600 miles." He said, "Come here." Now, beneath the belly of the aircraft, again, technical, you have a cable box for your TV. Remember what those used to look like? Well, there's one of those under the belly of the airplane, and all the wires come, the instruments are connected, the directional gyros are connected there, but there's nothing there but wires. He said, "It does not work." I said, "Come here." We got in the airplane, I started it up, dialed them in, and all the instruments are working, except the one that I needed wasn't working. Now, long story with that. They scrapped the airplane. It was totaled out. The insurance company bought us another aircraft. Now, while that one was in the shop, there's a purpose why I'm telling you these airplane stories, because I love airplanes.
And we're loving the stories.
But again, angels. Man, there's going to be such a,
come on.
I think, a renewal of angelic visitation. It's happening tomorrow. Angelic visitation that we've not seen in many years. Now, I've talked to pastors, man, I see angels all the time. No, you don't. If you see, sometimes the way angels appear, you'll be under a table. There's other times when it's calm, it's just totally serene, and that angel can be seen. Other times they're not seen. You know, I think sometimes that my angel asking for another assignment. I heard about this guy, pastor, driving down the road, and he's weaving all over. He had too much communion wine, and he ran in the ditch, and a police officer pulled up behind him and went over to him and said, "Sir," he said, "are you drunk?" He said, No, I just have the joy of the Lord. And the trooper smelled alcohol on his breath. He said, "Are you drinking?" He said, "No, sir, just the new wine of the Lord." And he saw a thermos over here. And he said, "What's in that thermos?" He said, "Water." So he said, "Let me smell it." True story. I know the pastor. And the trooper smelled it. He said, "This is wine." He said, "My God, Jesus did it again."
Our time is up. We're going to have him back next week. Come on, give it up for Archbishop. Thank you for joining us, everybody. See you here, same place, same time. The Apostolic Voice, we love you. Have a God-favored day.
Thank you for watching The Apostolic Voice with Doctors Mark and Jill Kaufman.